Welcome to our very first Lunch and Learn session. And first of all, most importantly, we really appreciate that you're taking the time today. And of course, we are trying to give you something back because we know that your time is really valuable. So my name is Tobias, and I'm currently heading up the marketing and communications team at Testbirds. Maybe some general information up front. At the moment, you are muted, but we will have a Q&A session at the end. And you can always send your questions through the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. And the actual chat is disabled. So please send us your questions through the Q&A function. So yeah, I'm not really used to moderate such a format. So therefore, I'm really, really happy today that I have my partner in crime, Chada, with me. She's joining us and she's been the lead designer on this exciting project we will present to you. So hi, Chada, how are you today?
Hello, Toby. I'm fine and really happy to be here. So I'm Jada, UI and UX designer in the Testbirds marketing team. And one of my specialties is also corporate identity. And yes, I am a little nervous too, to be honest, but also really excited to share with you our logo testing experience.
That's cool. Thanks a lot, Chada. What was actually your favorite project so far at Testbirds? We are working together since quite a while, but that's maybe also interesting.
Well, I would say for sure like the rebranding process. So back in 2021, we had this big rebranding. And of course, like the logo design was part of it. So.
Okay, cool. So you might also ask yourself, why did we come up with logo testing in our actual first Lunch and Learn session? Well, first of all, logo testing is part of our new service portfolio tailored for marketing teams. So in the past, we received quite a lot of project requests from marketing teams and gained quite some experience in this field. So we decided to introduce our new marketing services. The portfolio covers a broad variety of marketing-related services, and we will provide you with some more details later on. To cover this entire portfolio of services, we then decided to introduce this series of Lunch and Learn sessions. And today, we, as a marketing team, make the starting point. But for the future, we will, of course, also invite our real experts from our delivery teams to speak about some further exciting projects and use cases. So why do we start with the marketing team? Actually, yeah, well, we have become customers of our own company, respectively, of our own services. As mentioned, we are not the real testing experts. We are just a marketing team seeking for answers. And that's also the reason why we, of course, also test our activities. Like in this case, as Chada mentioned, with the rebranding, we decided to go for a new logo, and we wanted to get some more confidence in our decisions based on real user feedback. So let's go to the agenda for today. So today we want to present you with some basics around logo testing in general, present you with some practical and fun examples, and finally also go through our own logo test in more detail. So before we jump into the details of our new service portfolio and the actual logo test, let's quickly speak about crowd testing in general. What is actually crowd testing? To make it short from my side, we can help you developing digital products that people really love. But how? That's based on real user feedback from our crowd. So we have a global crowd of qualified and verified testers that provide you with unbiased real user feedback under real world conditions. Wow, that sounds a bit technical. I'm happy to have some more creative persons with me. Chada, how would you phrase that?
Well, let's say that we really bring the human touch to your decisions, or in other words, we make your customers part of the digital product development, and this can really be a game changer.
Well, and what I heard from clients, they even called it a superpower. So
True.
at least that's what I heard sometimes. But okay, let's have a look onto the portfolio of marketing services. As you can see on this slide, there are different services. Let's start with website and app testing. That's basically our daily business. So you can do different things. You can check out your websites, landing pages in more detail, compare different versions of landing pages to, for example, cart sorting, analyze details, such as the placement of call to action buttons, but it could go even further. So you could even cover the entire customer journey. So end-to-end testing of the customer experience of an online shop, for example. So that goes from the actual registration, placement of an order, the unboxing experience, or sending back your products, and for example, how long does it take until you get your money back, etc. So the complete customer journey. Ad testing, here it's rather about the design of your ads, the messaging of your ads, content testing, which goes even into more details. Could be also about long format pieces such as white papers, blog articles, but also client mailings. Campaign testing, there could be a mix of all of these testing methods. So that you can even test a complete campaign or do some general market research. And finally, of course, that's our topic for today, logo testing. So what is actually logo testing? What is it about? So the launch of a new company logo alongside a new or updated branding is really, really a big decision. It's an exciting decision and a major project for the entire company, of course, not only for the marketing team. It does not happen very often. And we as marketing teams, we should really do everything to get it right. So also, regardless of your budget, it's always crucial to test your logo concepts with focus groups or through surveys before the launch. Even if you spend a lot of money, and that's what we will see later on in some examples, this does not really guarantee success. And yeah, we would, of course, always guess it's much more expensive to fail at a rebranding or launching a new logo compared to investing in some testing. So yeah, in the first step, let's have a look onto some theoretical things, the qualitative versus the quantitative dimension. So the qualitative dimension, qualitative studies generate data about user behaviors or attitudes based on observing or hearing them directly. In quantitative studies, on the other side, it's data about behaviors or attitudes that are gathered indirectly, so through surveys or analytical tools. Yeah, then on the next slide, we have another dimension, the attitudinal versus behavioral dimension. So the purpose of attitudinal research is usually to understand or measure people's stated beliefs, but it's limited by what people are aware and really willing to report. On the other end of this dimension, user research methods that focus mostly on behavior seek to understand the real actions that users take while interacting with your product or service. Then here on the next slide, we can see basically our landscape of user research methods, and you can see a lot of different methods and services ranging from UX tests, quantitative usability tests, competitor analysis, or card sorting. Highlighted in green, you can see the ones that are really supposed to be used for a logo test. So in general, qualitative methods are better suited for answering questions about why or how to fix a problem, while quantitative methods do a better job answering how many and how much types of questions. Furthermore, the distinction between attitudinal and behavioral dimension can be summed up by contrasting what people say versus what people actually do. And that can be quite different very often. So, Chada, did I cover everything, or is there even more to this landscape of user research methods?
Well, a third distinction could be about how and whether participants in the study are using the product or service. So really the context of use. And it could be natural, scripted, so following a script, of course, limited, for example, a prototype, or like the participants could not use the product at all.
Okay, thanks, Chada. Let's go to the next slide. And here, yeah, exactly. Here you can now see the three services that are really supposed to be for logo testing. So in our case, we decided to go for this quantitative approach and did a crowd survey. And that's exactly what we will present you later on in the session. But for the moment, Chada, I will hand over to you that you present us with some really exciting stories from real life.
Well, thanks, Toby. So logo testing is a part of a wider branch, concept testing, that is, simply put, the act of evaluating a product, being it physical or digital, but it can also be an advertising, a campaign, or even a message or claim. And this by getting feedback from customers who make up the target market. So let's take a look at examples of how prominent brands are using concept testing in real life. In 2017, Tesla decided to test the upcoming Model 3 car. And this became a really famous test. First of all, because it was really gigantic. So it involved 400,000 persons. And the interesting thing is that they also offered the participants the opportunity to place a deposit of $1,000. So Tesla did not only got the insights, but also an impressive 400 million to develop the model. Lego was traditionally associated with boys for a very long time, until they decided to start research and testing, and they discovered that boys and girls engage with Lego in very distinct ways. So boys prefer standalone structures, you name them, towers, castles, and so on. But girls were more interested in backgrounds and environments. And so with the help of concept testing, they introduced Lego Friends. That is this line that features sets for various scenarios such as pop star house, cupcake cafe, hair salon, supermarket, and more. So here, for example, on the left, you can see the downtown flower and design store. And on the right, you have the community center of Heart Lake City. That is a heart-shaped town with rooftop garden and a girl painting a graffiti on the wall. So everybody living in peace and harmony. So this is a very unique concept that could have never been created without the help of concept testing. And this line was really immensely successful and led to Lego's average annual growth of 15% since its launch. This is the Yamaha Montage, a keyboard designed for composers. So Yamaha deliberated on the choice between sliders and knobs for this interface. And so they conducted a survey with 400 musicians from all over the world. And based on the feedback received, they made the choice to integrate both. So sliders alongside the key knob. So in this case, really the test insights were modifying the interface, the design of the keyboard. And now let's take a closer look at logo testing. It often happens in two situations. So before the launch of a new brand or during a rebrand, when a company wants to modernize or refresh its image, or maybe reflect a repositioning or a new strategy. So these are examples from top brands. Here on the bottom, maybe you will recognize the very recent Decathlon rebrand that has been made by Wolf Ollens. Okay, so everything can go smoothly, but things can go south very quickly. What happens when things go wrong and brands and agencies are launching their new logos without testing? This is the 2012 London Olympics logo, and like the Decathlons, is also made by Wolf Ollens. But this logo really generated a wave of hatred. So no other Olympic logo was received with so much contempt than this one, to the point that 400,000 UK citizens signed a petition to scrap it because they really felt it didn't represent London and found it to be too radical. And also the Iranian government argued that this logo is a veiled pro-Israeli conspiracy because it spells the word Zion. That's a bit of a stretch in my opinion, but anyway, it's really amazing to see the feelings that a logo can evoke in people.
Exactly. Thanks, Chada. That's really a good example because this has been created by an amazing and successful agency, but still they kind of failed here. And it's been a huge topic at the time.
Yeah,
Interesting
that's so
stuff.
Yeah. And you probably already know the Pepsi logo story. So this is a rebrand from 2008. And it was designed by the Arnold Group, and it was paid 1 million. And a brand as popular as Pepsi, and yet one of the worst logo design fails. In fact, now they are using a new version, but we will speak about it later. So customers criticized this logo to look like a fat man, and it went without saying that people took the liberty to redesign it as per the vision, and not in a good way. But the juiciest part is that the work in progress guideline of the concept leaked into the internet. So this extensive guide explained the design process. And this involved concepts like the golden ratio. Every designer knows it's really a classic. Leonardo da Vinci, but also the Hindu tradition of numerical harmony as spatial organizer, the relativity of space and time, and the gravitational pull of Pepsi, not to mention Pepsi relation to the speed of light. And this is an overview of the final result. As you can imagine, the people of the internet didn't miss the opportunity and were neither kind nor magnanimous regarding this guideline. And unfortunately, there are still reviews on of the concept that are lingering on YouTube.
That's also an interesting example, Chada, but I know Pepsi can do better. They learn from it, as we can see on the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you already mentioned. Meanwhile, they got a new logo, and that's their latest rebranding from last year, basically. But it's really also a nice story that has also something to do with testing. So Pepsi, as mentioned, learned from this, and they did another rebrand last year, but this time they really invited testers to recreate the Pepsi logo from memory.
Yeah.
And the absolute majority, most of the people created a logo that looked like the one on the top left. And that's the logo Pepsi used between 1987 and 1997, so for 10 years. But really, like 80% of the people were drawing exactly this logo. So Pepsi decided to go for this version, but still do some slight changes, as you can see. So I'm actually a big fan of this logo. I like it very much, but I'm not a designer. So Chada, what do you think about this logo?
Well, I have to say that probably here I'm a bit biased because I remember and loved the logo from the 80s and 90s from my childhood. And maybe the only thing that I don't appreciate 100% is the typography, because it looks a little bit retro to me. So probably doesn't reflect the modernity that the brands wanted to communicate. But at the end of the day, this is really a logo that works. Okay, but let's go back to logo testing. So how does it work in real life? And I mean, practically. So we will show you how our logo testing process worked. So as we already mentioned, we had this big rebrand in 2021, and this is our final logo design. But we started from a large variety of ideas and options. So here you can see only a few of them. So some of the variants take a more illustrative approach to the concept of birds, while in others, the birds are more stylized. And then we have some variants that are more abstract and are incorporating check marks that resemble birds. And at the end, we tested these 3 variants. But as we all know, in the design process, both designers and managers face challenges when selecting from a variety of drafts. And this often results in unsatisfactory outcomes, excessive scrutiny of individual design, and frustration and process delays. So, in order to overcome these obstacles, seeking external input becomes really invaluable. We decided to do a double test, one with our testers and platform, that is called Honest, and one with an external company, because we really wanted to get the feedback from testers that didn't know Testbirds at all, and so were not biased. Logo testing is a highly effective method because it provides a structured way to evaluate the versions of the logo and the possibility to choose the perfect target audience. And this brings to data-backed decision-making, opportunities for improvements based on the insights you gathered, and the possibility of understanding diverse reactions because you get a real chance to test with a new group of people. And now I will hand over to Toby, and he will show you a bit the testing phases.
Thanks a lot, Chada. But I would have one more question for you. As a designer, what did you enjoy the most during this process?
Well, probably I really like the part where we got to collect all the feedback. It can be challenging for a designer. It was, but it really gives you clarity, I would say.
And in general, it's been a lot of fun also for me
Yeah.
working together with you here. So let's quickly go through the logo testing steps we basically followed in our project. So first of all, the logo selection, then testing goals, metrics to turn into questions, the target audience, and the analysis and the decision making at the end of the project. So we will have a closer look now into every single step of this process. So on this slide, you can basically see our first outcome, the 3 logos we decided to go for in our test. So this choice was based on our own design experience, of course, but as well as on the feedback we received from different stakeholders. So for example, we had interviews and discussions with our management. We asked colleagues, family and friends. And of course, we also did an internal simplified survey to back up our decision. So in the second step, it's about setting your key goals. I give you some example for each of the following goals. What type of responses do I want? This could be about preference, so understanding which logo resonates the most with your audience. Clarity, are the message and elements clear and easy to understand? Memorability, understand if the logo leaves a lasting impression, or relevance, assess if the logo aligns with brand identity and values. Then the next one, what type of feedback data am I hoping to get? So we explained before that the different needs will lead to different test methods. So in our case, we wanted to get some quantitative data. And finally, how will I use the data once I get it? So for us, that was quite straightforward and simple. We just wanted to use the data to make a really well-informed decision on the final logo. Then in the next steps 3, everything is about selecting the metrics and turn them into questions. Here you can see an overview, but I will give you some examples here. Or in other words, you could also ask what actually makes a good logo design. So to give you some examples, appeal, is the design of your logo enticing? Purchase intent, will it motivate people to buy what you are selling? Believability, does its message seem credible? Or relevance, does it reflect your audience's needs and wants? And yeah, on this slide, you can then see how we turned these metrics into questions. Appeal, that's really just one example. That could be a question like, the logo has a visually appealing and modern design. And here you can see how we basically ask the question. So in our case, we mainly used the Likert scale. This enabled us to achieve more depth compared to just a yes or no question, of course. At the same time, it's still straightforward and user-friendly scale that provides respondents with consistent choices. It's always 5 in our case, making it simple for them to express their opinions. So in general, you can work with a 5 to 7 point scale that's ranging from one extreme to the other. So, and that's basically then an example for the outcome. The logo has a visually appealing and modern design again, and here you can then also quickly see how people answered. But this is really just for majority of the questions. So we also asked some more open questions. I also give you some examples. So at the very beginning of the survey, we also asked, what do you think the logo represents? So that was a complete open question we analyzed. And another one, which of these characteristics do you most associate with the company that uses this logo? So we gave people some predefined characteristics and one open field where they can also enter characteristics they think about, but it was about things like friendly, professional, clear, and so on and so forth. So on the next slide, you can also see that we came up with a really comprehensive survey with a lot of questions, but we also focused on the various areas where we wanted the logo to perform well. So that's basically the business context in general, the logo features, that's quite design related, and the digital context, how does it work on different digital channels like LinkedIn, on our website, on ads, etc., so that it also really performs in a digital context. So then we see another very important question we had to take if we want to go for a monadic or sequential monadic approach. So in our case, we basically decided to go for this monadic approach as we think it provides better results at the end of the day. So in a monadic approach, people are only shown one logo at a time. So they don't see all the 3 logos, they only see and rate one of the logos. In the sequential monadic approach, they basically see all of the logos, and that might quickly lead to some bias. So they quickly have their favorite logo, and then the rating for all the other logos goes south, basically. So that has a huge impact, and that's also the main reason why we decided to go for a monadic approach in this case. Let's go to step 4, the tester selection, respectively setting the target audience. So our crowd basically has more than 1 million real testers with over 1.5 million devices who can really provide fast and unbiased feedback on real products under real world conditions. So this setup also helped us to go for a monadic approach as it was quite easy for us to quickly find enough testers to help us. Furthermore, and that's also an important point, you can choose between 65 demographics to define your right target audience, which we can also see on the next slide. So we defined the right criteria for us, and most importantly for us, that's also just a short overview, was age, nationality, the actual job position people have at the moment, and some more information about their tech awareness. But how did we select our testers in detail? So for our positioning strategy and rebranding, we developed personas of different types of clients. So Chada, as a UX designer, she took over a huge part of all this research. How did we collect all those information step by step, Chada?
Yeah, so as you said, we created personas. So 4 client persona plus other 3 that were not clients. And here you can see an example. And we collected our data through, first of all, market research, like surveys and interviews, but also customer feedback, very important, business analytics, user testing, and stakeholder input.
That was also important basis for the entire rebranding project, and of course also for our logo test. Let's go to the final step. The last step in this process, step number 5, is about the review and analysis of your results. So this again is also just an example of the data we got from one of our survey questions, but here you can then quickly really see what's the favorite of the people. Logo number 1, with, let's say, in average 87% of people who find that the most attractive, but it's really just based on one of the questions. So on the next slide, we can then also see a summary of all the questions, not included here, open questions that has been analyzed separately. But that gives you a quick overview about all the questions from the actual survey. So business context, logo features, digital context, again, segmented. And yeah, it's quite obvious who's the winner in this case. It's logo number 1. And on this slide, you can basically see the complete summary. So again, we did not only do this test with our own testers from our so-called nest with our testers, because they might have been biased because they already know about our brand. So at the same time, we basically did the same survey with an external market research agency to be 100% on the safe side, so that we also get feedback from people who never been in touch with Testbirds as a brand. Yeah, exactly. That's it from my side. So we already have half an hour now, and I would again hand over to you, Chada, for some key takeaways.
Yeah, we try to be brief and speak about what this experience taught us. So first of all, data-backed decisions were a real game changer. So user feedback makes a big difference when making informed decision and persuading stakeholders. One of the most important aspects is also finding the right testing methods that will produce the insights you need. So in our case, it was a survey with a magnetic approach, but it needs to be as tailor-made as possible. And last but not least, even if we are testing experts, we were still surprised in some areas. So our final advice is don't rely only on your gut feelings.